I'd like to invite you to take your copy of God's Word and join me in the Gospel of John, chapter 13. John, chapter 13, as we are making our way through the book of John in a series that I've called One Way, seeing Jesus as that one way, not just a way, not even an option, but the one way that you can come to, the only way you can come to God. So, John chapter 13, we're going to be going over 17 verses this morning, which is a little bit of a lengthy section, but for sake of time, I'm just going to read one verse to kind of set up what's going on here. John chapter 13 and verse number 12, I'm going to read this and then we'll pray. So after he had washed their feet and had taken his garments and was sat down again, he said to them, "Know ye what I have done to you?" So the title of my message today is Humbleness in Service. Humbleness in Service. So we're going to look at that today as we are navigating this section here in John chapter 13. Humbleness in service. Let's go to the Lord with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. God, I pray as we enter into the time where we are sober-minded, that you would help us to focus on your word. Help us to understand why we're here. We're not just here to check off a box. We're not just here to fool around, so to speak, but we're here to hear from you. I hope that we do have fun in the process, but I know that fun isn't the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is you. It's not a book. It's not ritual. It's you, Jesus. And I pray you'd fill our hearts this morning. I pray that you, Holy Spirit, would fill me with the words you want me to say. Help me to say what you want said. Keep me from saying anything you don't want said this morning. Help me preach like a dying man to dying people. We ask that you would draw people to the cross. Ask that you would convict hearts. Not to make anybody feel bad, but so that we can be cleansed and so that we can labor for you and so that we can have joy and peace. I ask that you be honored and glorified in all that's said and done. Thank you for what you're going to do. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Alex Haley, who's the author of Roots, has a picture, or had a picture in his office showing a turtle on top of a fence post. The picture was there to remind him of a lesson that he said he learned a long time ago. He said if you see a turtle on a fence post, you know he had some help to get there. There's never been a time where a turtle has just somehow gotten himself up on a fence post. If you see a turtle on a fence post, it's because someone put him there. Alex goes on to say that anytime I start thinking, wow, isn't this marvelous what I have done? He says he looks at the picture and remembers how that this turtle and him got up on the post. Whenever we do anything, it's easy to say, wow, look what I've done. Look at this accomplishment that I have made. Look at what I've done that makes a difference in somebody's life. Look at what I've done that really takes care of things. We need to remember that it's the Lord. And just like that turtle's on a fence post, ladies and gentlemen, anything that you or I do this side of heaven that's going to accomplish anything, that's going to get anything done, is because God has enabled us to do so. There's 4 things I'd like to point out about this humbleness in service this morning that was demonstrated by Jesus, because Jesus is our goal. Jesus is the example. The example is not a man. If your goal is to be like me, you're going to lose joy. If your goal is to be like your favorite person on the earth, you're going to lose joy. The goal is Jesus Christ, because it is only in Him that joy is found. It's only in Him that truth is displayed in our hearts. We see, first of all, this morning, to find humbleness and service, we must understand, first of all, number one, the plan of God. Number one, we must understand the plan of God. God is a God of plans, by the way. God just doesn't do things and they happen by mistake. There's times I've made wrong turns and gotten someplace by mistake. That doesn't happen with God. Everything that happens in life does not happen unless it first passes through the sovereign hand of God. Listen carefully to these words. John 13, 1-3. Now therefore, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that His hour was come, that He should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own, which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things unto his hands, and that he was come from God and went from God. Jesus didn't say, wow, look at this situation. I don't know how I got here. You ever been somewhere and you wonder, how did this happen? How did I get here? That happens to us. But that friend, that never happened to Jesus. Jesus never had a situation where he was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do next. We have situations we don't know what we're going to do next. I found myself in some situations this week where I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. But God knows what he's going to do next. Jesus wasn't surprised or fearful. Here in verse number 3, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he was come from God and went to God. Jesus isn't surprised or fearful. You and I have times, friends, where we get surprised and we get fearful. That's understandable. It doesn't mean you have sin in your life. But when you get surprised or you get fearful, remember, friend, you have a Savior who's not surprised or fearful. You have a Savior that will help you navigate that situation. I'm not going to say it's going to be fun. I'm not going to say, well, you're going to have this situation, and if you just go take it to the throne, if you come respond at the altar, boy, you're just going to feel like $1 million. I'm not going to give you that promise. But what I will tell you is somebody will navigate that with you. Many times when people are grieving the loss of a family member, child, pet, you name it. Sometimes it's just having someone willing to listen is what helps them navigate those things. I was talking about this with somebody before the service. I had a teacher in seminary who, when he was a pastor, he was talking to a lady who had lost her husband. And she said to the pastor, she said, it feels like everybody acts like my husband never existed because they thought it would be uncomfortable to talk about him. When really all she wanted them to do was listen to her stories about her husband. Some people don't want to talk about that loved one that they've had to say goodbye to, and that's fine. There are others, though, that they want to honor that memory. Jesus was loving towards all. That's what we need to see here as well, that Jesus was loving towards all. Jesus didn't just love nice people. It wasn't just friendly people he had on his mind. Ladies and gentlemen, it's easy for you and I to love the person that loves you. It's easy to love the people that love you back. What the true trial is, and when there's humbleness in service, just like on the screen here, stooping down, washing somebody's feet, the true humbleness is when you love somebody that may or may not love you back. You ever love somebody that doesn't love you back? It's not easy. It's not fun. It's probably one of the hardest things you can do in life, is try to love somebody that doesn't love you back. R.O. Woodworth once said, he was one of the men that helped found Baptist Bible College. He got up to preach one time and he said that there are 3 things that are hard to do in life. One is to climb a fence leaning towards you. Another is to live up to a generous introduction that you've been given. And the other one is to kiss a girl leaning away from you. It's easy to love people that love you back. You ever done something nice for somebody, went out of your way? I'm sure you have. And you put a lot of thought into doing something nice for somebody. You put your effort, you put your resources into that, and you're thinking, I'm going to show this person love, and then they just dismiss it. Or they revisit you or repay you with hate. You felt like that this morning? Jesus feels like that every time somebody says no to the gospel that's shared. Every time somebody says, let me tell you about my Savior who died for you and loved you enough to save you from the penalty of your sin. And somebody says, no, not for me, I don't think so. The way you feel about somebody revisiting or repaying your act of love with hate or rejection, that's how Jesus feels every time the gospel is rejected. The recording of this event here that pictures Jesus washing Judas's feet after Judas had determined to betray him shows the greatness of God's love and the love of Jesus. John's reference to Satan's role in Judas's decision drives this point home even further. So Jesus knew that this spirit of betrayal had entered into Judas, And Jesus didn't say, hey, you know what? I've got to you, Judas. I'm not washing your feet. He still washed them. It'd be real easy to look at, oh, John, I'm going to wash your feet. Oh, you've been so loving. Oh, Peter, we'll talk about him in a minute. Oh, Peter, you got out on that boat when nobody else would. You got out on that water, when no one else would. It's easy to think that was going to happen. That Jesus, oh, Judas, I know that's your heart, Judas. I'm not washing your feet. He didn't do that. He still washed them anyhow. There's nobody on the face of this earth that is too bad or too wicked for us to give the love of God to. Listen carefully here to Luke chapter 5, verse 22. But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answering said to them, what reason ye in your hearts? Jesus gave the people in Luke chapter 5 an opportunity to come clean. And he's doing the same thing here to Judas. When he goes to Judas, I keep walking to Mark for some reason. Mark's not a picture of Judas, okay? He's just on the front row and I can't pick on my wife. So he goes to Judas and he washes his feet, knowing full well and he's giving Judas a time to repent and a time to come clean. But Judas won't do it, as we know. This phrase, he loved them unto the end. This is the Greek word telos, which means an accomplished purpose. Later, when we see the words, it is finished, and we see then that our sin debt is paid in full, which gives greater meaning. You ever seen something that's paid in full? You ever went and paid for something and maybe somebody only paid part of it? Or here's the one I hate. Somebody gives you a gift card. This will cover what you're wanting. And then you go to use that gift card. They didn't account for tax. They didn't account for, the inflation. It went up about $5. So I get a gift card for X amount of dollars, use it, thinking it's going to pay for what I want. And then, I've got to pony up about another $6 or $7. Now that may not sound like a lot, but when you get a gift card thinking, this is gonna get me what I want, and it doesn't, we're going to get disappointed. Not the case with Jesus. Inflation doesn't do anything to the shed blood on the cross. We need to see, secondly, the posture of service. The posture of service. We've seen so far the plan of God. Number 2, I want you to see with me the posture of service. Listen carefully as I read verses 4 through 10. This is a little lengthy, but listen carefully here. It says, he riseth from supper and laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself. And after that he poureth water unto a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, why dost thou wash my feet? And Jesus answered and said, what I do thou knowest not, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter saith unto him, thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him. And Jesus answered him, and if I wash thee not, then thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter saith unto him, Lord, not only my feet only, but my hands and my head. Jesus saith unto him, he that is washed needeth not to save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit or every way, and ye are clean, but not all. We see this posture of service. Washing someone's feet in such a situation was the role of the most lowly position of servants. You want to talk about the most menial task. People think today digging ditches or shoveling manure is one of the dirtiest jobs you can get. In this culture, that washing feet goes further than those. People didn't line up to wash feet. People didn't say, I want to wash this person's feet. No, I got there first. No, I got there first. You're not going to see your kids lining up to wash somebody's feet. I don't know about anybody's kids, but I doubt there's any kids here that would say, I'm going to line up to wash somebody's feet. You're going to see kids arguing over that. You don't go to the First Jerusalem High School and go to a guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor say, I think a real good career for you would be feet washing. That's not something that was recommended. And to be real honest with you, I don't want to wash your feet, okay? I don't like touching people's feet. I don't like people touching my feet. I don't want you washing my feet. But the idea here isn't about foot washing. Some people make that a big deal. I went to a wedding one time and the bride and groom are washing each other's feet. And I'm like, why? Why are you doing? It's their wedding. They can do what they want. And I get the symbolism, but there are times where people will do that in church services. And you want to do that, that's fine. But the bottom line is I can wash somebody's feet But does that really make me closer to Jesus? Does it really make me close to Jesus if I go wash somebody's feet? Maybe, maybe not. But if it's a self-righteous ritual, if I go, ha, look at me, I have washed feet, then I'm making it about me, and I'm making it about the feet being washed, not about the Savior. Are we willing to humble ourselves? And I don't mean that somehow, well, you can obtain a humility and write a book about it. But are you willing to submit and surrender? I know some preachers that aren't even willing to take out the trash at home or at church. I know some preachers like that. Oh, woman, get in your place, get in the kitchen. Where's our service at? Where's our submission and surrender? If we think we're too good to do something, we've got another thing coming. You'd be surprised how many preachers are not willing to do something like that. The posture of service is seen by the served. Jesus even dressed as a slave. This is how Jesus was seen by those at the table. Jesus came up from a supper, which is symbolic here because supper, I don't know about anybody else, but when I eat my food, I want to be comfortable. Okay? I eat slow. I can eat fast, but I like to eat slow because, I don't have a lot of guilty pleasures in life, and enjoying food's one of them. So I'm going to take my time when I eat my food, if I can. So Jesus gets up from a comfortable place from the supper. But friends, He left a comfortable place when He left heaven. Imagine everything that Jesus left behind to come to die on a cross, to go to a cross like this. Georgia was asking me yesterday about this crown of thorns up there, and where it went on him, and I told her it went on his head, and she touched him, and this is just a symbolic, but when I was in South Greenfield, we had a crown of thorns that had actual thorns, and there were little drops of red painted at the end of the thorns to be symbolic of how that crown of thorns went onto his head, and those thorns pierced into the skin and caused pain and discomfort. It wasn't comfortable. He gets up out of a place of rest and comfort. He lays aside garments of royalty and puts on the garments here to wash feet, which is symbolic of Him taking on humanity. He takes a towel and wraps it around Himself, which means He's ready to work. He takes on the form of a servant ready to work, and He pours the water into a basin, kind of like you see up here on the screen. And that's symbolic of Him being ready to wash away the sins of the world. And after He did all this, He sits down again after serving the disciples, which is symbolic of Him ascending to heaven, sitting at the right hand of the Father. 1 Peter 5:5-6 tells us this, likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another. So he tells the younger, hey, submit to the elder. But he also says here, yea, all of you be subject one to another, be clothed with humility. Is there a humility cloak we put on? It's not like an invisibility cloak. There's a special suit you put on that makes you humble. When people see you, they ought to see the humility in your actions and in your attitude. There's not a brand. It's not like Armani suits or Botany 500 or Puma. It's not like that. It's our acts of service that paint that picture. He says, be clothed with humility, for God resisteth the proud, and giveth grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that He may exalt you in due time. Undoubtedly, what Jesus said here stuck in Peter's mind and stuck in his heart for a long time to come. When this was going on here, Peter had to humble himself, because Peter says here, "Oh, don't wash my feet." We see that here with the humility of the served here in verses 7 through 10. Because first, in verse 6 is, then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? And then he answers him, what I do knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter says to him, you shall never wash my feet. Jesus answers him, says, if I wash thee not, then thou hast no part of me. And then Peter starts to get it in verse 9 when he says, not only my feet, but my hands and my head also. There had to be an act of humility to be served here. They had to let Jesus serve them. We must let Jesus serve us by directing our path and cleansing our lives from sin. When we refuse Listen to me. When we fence Jesus off from a certain area of our life, okay, Jesus, I'm okay with this. Nope, I'm not okay with it. You're not going to touch this part of my life. Then we're being prideful and we're lacking humility. Jesus ought to be able to influence every part of our lives. We can't compartmentalize ourselves and say, well, here's the part you can have, Jesus, but I don't want this over here. Heard a story when I was in college about a gal who was seeing a guy. Her parents weren't particularly in favor of it. She's got him to church eventually. He's unsaved, didn't want anything to do with church, gets him to church. He comes a few times, talks to the pastor, keeps coming, eventually gets saved. And she goes, we can go get married now. So they get married. She's like, man, I'm so glad I've got a godly husband. He's in church. Then he says to her, I think we need to be there on Sunday night and Wednesday night. Well, okay, I guess we can do that. That's probably a good thing. Mom and Dad are going, so they start going. And then he says to her, I think we need to get serious about getting involved and serving in some areas of service. All right, I guess we should. Well, then he really throws a curveball at her and says, I think God wants me to preach. Whoa, I just wanted you to get saved. I didn't want you to be a preacher. I just wanted to get you saved. We see the initial refusal here by Peter was pride. Peter makes this dramatic statement after others had had their feet washed. He washes, we know he had washed others' feet because it says that when he came to Peter, so he's washed this person's feet, he's washed this person's feet, and he comes to Peter. Peter says, you don't need to wash my feet, Lord. Hey, this foot washing stuff, Jesus, it's for everybody else, and it's okay that everybody else's feet get washed, but I don't wash mine, I don't need you washing my feet. But boy, these other people, they sure need their feet washed. It's just like saying, well, oh man, so-and-so should have heard that sermon. Now, really, we all need to hear that sermon, whatever that sermon is. I don't disagree that so-and-so might have needed to hear it, but if we don't first say, hey, we needed to hear it, we needed that reminder. The eventual receiving was power deeper. The eventual receiving, was power. The deeper meaning here is that Jesus has no fellowship with those that have not been cleansed by Him. Man's humility, according to somebody, I'm not smart enough to come up with this term, but he said that man's humility does not begin with the receiving of service. The humility that some man has, that man demonstrates, isn't just the giving of the service. It begins with the readiness to receive it. For there can be much pride and condescension in our giving of service. Isaiah 4:4 says, when the Lord shall have washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, and shall have purged the blood of Jerusalem from the midst thereof by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning. What does that mean? In the middle of chaos, God will prepare people for a relationship with Him. Thirdly, and we're getting almost done, we see the practice of serving in 11 through 12. For He knew who should betray Him. Therefore He said, ye are not all clean. And so after He had washed their feet, He had taken His garments and was set down again. He said unto them, know ye what I have done to you? Jesus had set out to teach them something they needed to learn and apply about serving. In order for them to practice the example Jesus had laid for them, they needed to be reminded of a few things, and we too need to be reminded of a few things. Verse 11 tells us it must be unconditional. There's no indication here that Jesus avoided Judas, nor was He just hoping Judas would eventually turn into the person that He wanted him to be. He served Jesus no matter what. The things we do here, we're going to do them no matter what. We need to do them no matter what. We need to be inviting people no matter what. We need to be coming together and worship regardless of who's here or who's not here. Matthew 26, 24 through 25 tells us the Son of Man goeth as it was written of Him, but woe unto him that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It had been good for that man if he had not been born. Then Judas, which betrayed Him, answered and said, Master, is it I? And He said to him, Thou hast said. Judas had his time and it had come and gone. It must be understood in verse 12. The world thinks that happiness is a result of doing things that they want us to do. Some churches are ran like that too. Real joy comes when we serve others in the name of Jesus. Fourthly and lastly, the pleasing of God we see here. The pleasing of God. Look at verses 13 through 17 with me and we're almost done. You call me Master and Lord. And you say, well, for so am I. If then your Lord and Master have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that ye should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them. The theory of being a servant isn't worth very much in the world's eyes, but the practice of being a servant pleases God, meaning it gives Him the spotlight and it fulfills our calling. Warren Wiersbe said, by becoming a servant, our Lord did not push us down, He lifted us up. He dignified sacrifice and service, according to Warren Wiersbe. Didn't push you down when He served you, He lifted you up. See that picture that's up there on the overhead? He gets down to serve and wash the feet. He didn't get up, He didn't stand up and lord over anybody when he washed their feet. He got down. He humbled Himself. G.K. Chesterton said that a really great man is one who makes others feel great. And Jesus did that with His disciples by teaching them to serve. You want to make somebody feel great? I like to make people feel great, and sometimes we want to give them what they want. What we need to do to make somebody feel great is teach them to serve. Teach them how they can make a difference. Teach them that it's important. James 4:11 says, speak not evil of another, brethren. He that speaketh evil of his brother and judgeth his brother speaketh evil of the law and judgeth the law. But if thou judge the law, thou art not a doer of the law, but a judge. James is saying here, if you're judging, you're supposed to be a doer of the law, not a judge, not somebody. Now we need to judge in the sense we have discernment, but he's talking about making a judgment where you're pronouncing condemnation on someone, is what he's talking about. Someone trying to be the judge in these matters is taking the place of Jesus Christ. When we have proper humility before God, it just isn't within us to arrogantly judge our brothers or sisters in Christ. In closing, during the Great Depression in the early 1930s, a man owned a large area of land where he had raised cattle. Financial problems brought this man to a place of bankruptcy. Then an oil company, believing there might be oil on his land, asked him for their permission to drill. With nothing to lose, the man agreed. And it wasn't long before this drilling company struck the greatest oil deposit up to that time in North America. Overnight, this man became a millionaire. Just think of the untapped riches that were there all along. He just didn't know it. For you, friend, there may be untapped riches in your life. I won't say there may be. There are untapped riches in your life. But until you humble yourself, until you come to the Lord broken, until you come to Him with no other answer, you're not going to see that untapped potential. You're not going to have joy in your life if we just keep doing it our own way. Until we turn to Him and we listen to Him and we obey His voice and we submit to it and we humble ourselves. There's people that serve without humbleness all the time. Not just in church, but just in general in life. And when we serve without humbleness, we forget our purpose. We forget about what God did for us. When we serve without humbleness, we start to forget who it's about. When we serve without humbleness, we lose our joy real quick. And it's something every preacher, it's something that every church, it's something that every believer has to be on guard for. I don't say that in a way to try to rebuke or chastise anybody. I do say that it can happen to everybody. And one of the biggest hindrances to revival is Without humbleness, we want joy in our lives. We've got to humble ourselves in service, because that's where it starts. Maybe the act of humbleness today comes by the way of a decision. Maybe you're here today and you just look back in your life, you know you're not saved. You know you need to get saved. Humble yourself by coming to Him today. Maybe you know you need to get baptized. You know that's a decision you need to make to start that walk with Him so that you can have that closeness with Him. Maybe your humbleness is to join this church and to be part of what's going on, to help this church go forward. We're starting year 140. We're not going to get to 141 without God sustaining us and without us humbling ourselves in service. Let's pray.
For more information, visit our website at mountzionozark.weebly.com. And thank you for watching. We would love the opportunity to meet you and get to know you better. Feel free to come visit during one of our services. Have a blessed day.